as a short case or to you, or as a part of the long case. In my patient can have in one eye mature, immature, or hypermature cataract, and FAK in other eye. So you have to discuss in the long case also and as a short case also. So what will be the scenario of the FAK? So patient aged about 68 years came to the hospital for change of glasses. There is history of operation 20 years back. So from nearly 1990s, every center of the cataract surgery, after doing cataract surgery, they are implanting intraocular lens. So no one is keeping patient aphakic. In modern ophthalmology, if you are leaving a patient aphakic, there is some eventful surgery has occurred. You had encountered a postage capsular rent or there is vitreous loss. Something has happened because of which you could not implant the lens. Otherwise, as a dictum, after doing cataract surgery, you are supposed to implant the intraocular lens. That is a complete visual rehabilitation you have to give to the patient. So the patient who are recently operated, most of them will have pseudophakia. If they are aphakic, means they have had some problem during the surgery. But 20 years or 30 years back, aphakia was the type of the surgery which we used to do. We used to leave the patient aphakic, and after 6 weeks post-operatively, we used to prescribe extraocular glasses. At that time, intraocular lens was not in vogue, and it has not come to India after before 30 years. So the family history is nil, and patient gives history of operation 20 years back. So general examination is okay. There is nothing particular. Visual acuity. So this you should keep in mind. Unaided visual acuity in a case of aphakia is only counting finger 1 meter. As the patient we are examining is both eyes aphakia. So the patient will be having 1 by 60 vision in both eyes. Unaided. If the patient doesn't wear the glass, the patient will have only vision of 1 meter. Aphakic patient. This is the common question asked by the examiner when aphakia is kept as a part of long case or short case. What is the unaided visual acuity of the aphakic patient? Unaided visual acuity of the aphakic patient is counting finger 1 meter or 1 by 60. This you should keep in mind, okay? And the findings will be conjunctiva will be normal, and if you carefully examine at 12 o'clock limbus, you will see a horizontal line at 12 o'clock limbus. Scar at the limbus will be there. Cornea will be transparent, surface normal, shape elliptical, no abnormal vascularization, sensations are normal. And another finding of aphakia is antechamber will be deep. As I told you, when you remove the anteposterior diameter of the normal lens is 4 to 8 millimeters. So when you remove the lens and don't implant anything, then the iris diaphragm will fall back and AC will appear deep. Okay. So the second finding of aphakia is antechamber will be deep. And then pupil will be central, round, reacting to light, direct and consensual. So iris color will be normal, pattern will be normal, no vascularization, no cyst, and no nodules. Iridodonesis is present. So whenever you leave the patient aphakic, so what happens? There is no barrier between the anterior segment and the posterior segment. The barrier between the anterior segment and the posterior segment is lens, okay, or posterior capsule. When you do surgery of the lens, extracapsular surgery, you will be leaving the posterior capsule intact. So that will act as a barrier. So it will not allow the vitreous to come in contact with the iris. So when there is no posterior capsule, the vitreous gel can come in contact with the iris diaphragm. And whenever patient moves the eye, there will be tremulousness of the iris. Whenever a gel moves, you might have seen a jelly mold on your dining table. If your mother has baked a jelly, so if you give a jerk, the jelly will move. So similarly, the vitreous is a gel. So when with the movement of the eye, the gel will move, and because there is no barrier between the anterior segment and the posterior segment, this movement of the vitreous gel is transmitted to the iris, And iris will also tremulous. It will also move in a tremulous fashion. That tremulousness of the iris is known as iridodonesis. This is the third finding of aphakic eye. Iridodonesis will be present. Tremulousness of the iris. Whenever patient moves the eye, you can see the iris diaphragm will move like a curtain. Then if you examine the pupil, the fourth or fifth finding of the aphakic eye is the pupil will appear jet black in color. It is very typical finding of aphakic eye, jet black pupil. And then when you examine the patient, when you do retinoscopy, patient will be highly hypermetropic and patient will be wearing thick glasses. So what are the findings of aphakia? There will be history of operation will be there. When you examine, there will be scar at the limbus. Then AC will be deep. Tremulousness of the iris or iridodonesis will be present. Jet black pupil will be present, and patient will be highly hypermetropic. That means patient will be wearing thick convex spectacles. This is the photo which shows aphakia, jet black pupil. And then pattern of the iris is maintained. Here also you can see the jet black round pupil. AC will be deep. Here you can clearly see the iris diaphragm is fallen back. And here in this left side picture, you are seeing a triangular opening in the periphery. So whenever you leave the patient aphakic, whenever there is posterior capsule, so what happens? The vitreous gel can come and block the pupil. Okay. When vitreous gel blocks the pupil, what will happen? The aqueous which forms in the posterior chamber by the ciliary body will remain in the ciliary body, in the posterior chamber. Yesterday also I told you the normal flow of the aqueous is formed in the posterior chamber of the eye, behind the iris, by the ciliary body, and it comes into the anterior chamber through the pupillary opening, and it is drained from the angle of the anterior chamber into the canal, trabecular meshwork, canal of Schelm, and episcleral vessels. So when the pupil is blocked by the vitreous gel, the aqueous which is formed in the posterior chamber will remain in posterior chamber and it cannot come out. So patient can develop. So there will be iris bomb, a movement of the iris diaphragm anteriorly, thereby closing the angle. Closure will occur and patient will develop secondary glaucoma. So to prevent this secondary glaucoma, you will be creating an additional opening in the periphery of the eye, which is known as PBI, peripheral buttonhole iridotomy. So whenever your aphakic case is kept, and if you see this type of opening, you should tell I am seeing a PBI at 2 o'clock position or 1 o'clock position or 12 o'clock position. Wherever it is present, you should tell. Then the examiner will ask why the PBI is created. Then you should tell to prevent the secondary glaucoma, pupillary block glaucoma. The vitreous gel can come into the pupillary area and can block the pupil, thereby causing secondary angle closure in the iris, so that even if the pupil is blocked, then the aqueous can come out from that peripheral buttonhole iridotomy. So next question which is asked by the examiner is, what are the problems faced by the patient who is aphakic? So relatively spectral magnification. As I told you, the normal distant correction which you are supposed to give to an aphakic patient is plus 10 diopter spheres. So when you hold the plus 10 lens, it will magnify the any object you see to 33 times. So patient till now he is using his crystalline lens was used to see the things in normal size. Now all of a sudden he will be seeing everything bigger. So that is the main problem which the patient will face. There will be relative magnification will be there of the images. 33 times the image will be magnified. Number two, weight of the spectacle. The spectacles will be so heavy, if the patient is both eyes aphakic, he will have to carry nearly 200 grams of weight on his nose. The collective weight of two plus 10 diopter lenses will be nearly 200 grams, and that he has to carry it on the nose So always he will be feeling the weight of the spectacles on his nose. If the patient is unilateral aphakia, if one eye is normal and another you have left aphakic, then when you give aphakic correction, one eye will be showing normal size image and another eye will be seeing 33 times magnified. So when these two dissimilar images, brain cannot fuse. So patient will start seeing one object as two. It is known as anisometropic diplopia. Whenever there is difference in refractive power of two eyes, there will be difference in the size of magnification of size of the image because of the magnification problem. In aphakic eye, the image of the object, if I am seeing an object, with aphakic eye, I will be seeing 33 times more magnified, whereas the normal eye will be seeing it as a normal size. So these two dissimilar image patient brain cannot fuse. So the patient will see one object as two, and that type of diplopia is known as anisometropic diplopia. So to correct that, what you are supposed to do, the normal eye you have to blank. You have to block the normal eye. And the weight I told you, the phakic glass will be thicker. When the normal eye also you have to give balance, equal weight of the ground glass so you have to give. Otherwise, what problem will have? In the next slide, I will show you what problem the patient will face. And there are certain aberrations will be there. Spherical aberrations will be there, chromatic aberrations will be there, and then visual field limitation will be there. What happens in phakic glasses, the patient will be able to see from the center of the glass only. From the periphery of the glass, the refraction will not occur. So the patient has to turn his head to see instead of moving. If he moves, normally what we see, if somebody comes at the door, I am looking at my laptop. If somebody is coming at the door, I will just move my eyes and see. Affect patient has to move his neck and see at the door because he can see from the center part of his phakic glasses only. And then because the loss of the crystalline lens, the ultraviolet rays will be absorbed by the crystalline lens, God-given lens. And in IOL also, the ultraviolet protection will be there. Glaring coating will be there. So when you leave the patient phakic, the ultraviolet rays will enter into the eye and patient may develop uh, maculopathy, photomaculopathy. Macula can be destroyed because of entry of ultraviolet rays into the phakic eye. And there are the other problems which phakic patients faces more when than the non-phakic patient. So incidence of cystoid macular edema will be more. Incidence of retinal detachment will be more. If the patient is diabetic and before your cataract surgery he is having non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy, and if you leave the patient phakic, then the rate by which they convert into proliferative diabetic retinopathy will be faster in phakic patients than compared to the non-phakic patients. And in children, if you leave them phakic, in olden days, so what we used to do is before 2 years of age, if we operate upon a congenital cataract, we used to leave the children phakic. So you have to instruct the patient and the parents of the children to insist that the child should wear the phakic glasses. And as I told you, the phakic glasses are very heavy, and child will not tolerate it. He will throw it away. So, because of the deprivation of the stimulation to the macula, patient will develop amblyopia. So, if you leave a child phakic without phakic correction, then the amblyopia can develop. These are the other difficulties of aphakia. The problems of aphakia is relative spectacle magnification because aphakic eye will see 33 times more magnified. There will be anisometropia. If unilateral aphakia is there, aphakic eye will see 33 times more magnified, and patient will pursue diplopia, anisometropic diplopia, because of difference in refractive error. Aberrations will be there, and because of the heaviness of the glasses, the glass will try to slip on the nose, and our patient will be feeling the weight of the glass on the nose. There will be visual field limitation, as I told you. Patient will be able to see only from the center of the glasses. From the periphery of the glasses, patient will not be able to view when the power is very high. So there will be visual limitation will be there. These are the aberrations. It is known as pin cushion effect. Graph or straight lines, he will see it as a curved lines. It is known as spherical aberration. It is also known as spin cushion distortion. So whenever you put a graph paper on a mattress, cushion mattress, and press with your finger or pin, you will see this type of distortion. So the FAQ question will see this type of distortion when he views at the graph paper. And chromatic aberration is, as you all know, when the white light passes through the prism, it breaks into colored lights, rainbow colors. So high hypermetropic glasses is convex lens, biconvex lens. Biconvex lens is nothing but a truncated prism. So when the light passes through the thick aphakic glasses, the it will break, white light will break into colored lights. So intelligent patient will tell you, whenever I see at the object, I will see the blue hue or the red hue surrounding the objects. That is known as chromatic aberration. These are the problems of the FAK glasses. As I told you, it will be magnified. You can see the size of the eye is looking very big through when you see through the FAK glasses. When the patient is bilateral FAK, so you can see a thick glasses and always there will be weight on the nose. And this man is trying to keep the FAK glasses on the root of the nose by lifting his nose, and you are seeing excessive wrinkling on the forehead. It is because that his heavy FAK glasses will try to slip on the nose. So it should not slip. He is keeping his face taut, that it should remain on his face on the root of the nose. So this is woman is having unilateral aphakia, and the optician didn't keep the balance glass here. Thin glass, if you put, there will be tilting of the spectacle will be there. So whenever you prescribe aphakic glass for the unilateral aphakia, you should ask the optician to keep the balance in the normal eye. Same weight lens you have to put, and it should be ground glass. Patient should not see from that light. So when the patient puts on the aphakic glasses, they will be using their aphakic eye. When they remove the glass, they will be using their normal eye. So when you unilateral aphakia, patient cannot use both eyes together. That is a dictum. So the better rehabilitation for the aphakic patient, unilateral aphakia is, you can prescribe contact lens to the patient. The contact lens will have its own, unless the patient is very much intelligent and wants to use contact lens, then only you will use. Even the youngster who are having high myopia, they are reluctant to use the contact lens because it is cumbersome to put the contact lens and you have to remove it after 8 hours. And more so the old patient is, who is having cataract, most of the patient will be 50 plus. So they will be having arthritis problem, they will be having the other problems is by which they cannot maintain the aphakia, so they can contact lens. So the third better option for aphakic patient is secondary IOL. The patient can have, as I told you yesterday, when you cannot place the IOL in the posterior chamber, you can put it in anterior chamber, or you can put it anterior iris claw lens or posterior iris claw lens, or you can suture the IOL to the sclera. It is known as scleral fixated IOL. So these are the various options of correcting aphakia. First and foremost and easiest option is extra. Many will have problems like magnification, unilateral aphakia. If the patient is having, they will have anisometropic diplopia, and there will be tilting of the glasses will be there, and there will be heaviness of the glasses will be there. The limitation of the field of vision will be there. So the next better option is you can put the patient on contact lens. You can prescribe contact lens. If the patient is intelligent and motivated, they will use it. So the magnification will go and field of vision will increase if the patient uses the contact lens. If the patient is old and having Parkinsonism and arthritis, they cannot put the contact lens properly in the eye. So the next better option is go for the secondary IOL in the aphakic eye. So After examining the patient, you can offer anterior chamber IOL or iris claw lens or posterior chamber IOL like a scleral fixated IOL in the posterior chamber. So in FAK equation, as I told you, there will be additional openings in the iris. So whenever you describe that additional opening, so the examiner will ask you what are the different types of iridotomies. This is known as peripheral buttonhole iridotomy. Triangular opening, which is done in the periphery, is known as peripheral buttonhole iridotomy. Sometimes you will be doing sector iridotomy. A whole sector of the iris is removed. So this is known as sector iridectomy or broad iridectomy. When you remove the whole sector of the iris, allowing the sphincter of the pupil, and the whole shape of the pupil will be lost. This type of iridotomy is known as sector iridectomy, keyhole iridectomy, or broad iridectomy. Okay. So I told you why iridectomy will be done in FAK equation to prevent the secondary glaucoma. So whenever a case of aphakia came to you or play in a short case or a part of long case, all these questions will be asked. First, how examiner will ask you, how did you come to the conclusion that patient is aphakic? You can tell. In the history, patient gives the history that there is history of operation, and on examination, I can see the visual acuity of the patient is 1 meter only. Uncorrected visual acuity is 1 meter, and I can see a scar at the limbus, and AC is deep. And whenever patient moves the eye, there is tremulousness of the iris or iridodonesis is there, and pupil is jet black, and there is presence of iridectomy. And patient has become highly hypermetropic, and they are wearing thick aphakic glasses. These are the 6 or 7 findings by which to come to the conclusion that it is a case of aphakia. And then we will ask you, can you correct the aphakia? The first and foremost and easiest thing to correct aphakia is prescribe extraocular glasses. So they will ask what power will you prescribe for the distance. Now, if the patient is emmetropic before operation, they will accept plus 10 diopter spheres. So 90% of the population is emmetropic. They won't have any refractive errors. So as a dictum or a standard, FAK glasses is plus 10 diopter sphere for the distance. And because you have removed the whole lens, there is no accommodation. So you have to add plus 3 for the near. So for the near vision, you have to prescribe plus 13, 1, 3. These are the common questions which is asked whenever FAKI is kept as a short case or a part of long case. What is the power of the distance vision in FAKI eye? Plus 10 diopter is the power which is prescribed for FAKI eye and for the distance. And for the near, plus 13 is prescribed. You have to add plus 3 for the accommodation, and the total power for the near vision will be plus 13. And then something examiner will ask what are the difficulties or disadvantages of spectacles. You can tell something it is heavy, magnification will be there, anisometric diplopia will be there, and then patient field of vision will get reduced, and they will have aberrations like pincushion effect, jack-in-the-box phenomena, and chromatic aberrations. So what are the better options? So you can then, so next option is contact lens. You can prescribe contact lens and avoid the problem of accommodation, magnification. So the difficulty of the contact lens disadvantage is patient is old. If it is having, if he or she is having arthritis or Parkinsonism, they cannot maintain the contact lens properly. The next option is permanent option is implanting secondary IOL. Secondary IOL, after seeing the patient, you can decide whether to implant an anterior chamber IOL, iris claw lens, or scleral fixated IOL. The next, whenever you are coming to the hospital, so not only you will see the cases in the OP, you will come to the operation theater also. So in the operation theater, what you are supposed to see also I am trying to cover by the video and by the theory. In the theory, we have covered what is peribulbar block. Okay, peribulbar block, 99% of the eye surgery is being done under peribulbar block only. All adults who come for the cataract surgery or any other ophthalmic surgery, the local block which we give is peribulbar block. Unless the patient is child or patient is mentally retarded or patient is dumb and deaf, will in these three category only we will be using general anesthesia. Otherwise, all ophthalmic surgery, auricular surgeries are done under peribulbar block, local anesthesia. So peribulbar block is given in peripheral space of the orbit. This I had taken you in detail while talking about the routes of administration of the drug and about the orbit also. What are the spaces, surgical spaces of the orbit? So how much drug you will be giving? 5 cc of xylocaine 2%, adrenaline 1 in 1000, hyaluronidase mixture is injected in the peripheral space. So commercially, lidocaine 2% or xylocaine 2% is available as a 30 cc vial. So in the 30 cc vial of xylocaine injection, you will add 1 ampule of adrenaline. Half cc will be there adrenaline, 1 in 1000. And hyaluronidase will also come in a vial in a form of powder. You mix it, saline, and mix 1 vial of hyaluronidase and 1 ampule of adrenaline in 30 cc of xylocaine. And from this mixture, you take 5 cc in 5 cc syringe and you inject it in the peripheral space. Why do you want to give block to the patient? You want akinesia, you want anesthesia, you want paralysis of orbicularis oculi. So in layman's language, patient should not move the eye, patient should not feel the pain, and patient should not close the eyelids. All these three is achieved by peribulbar block. When patient doesn't move the eye, it is known as akinesia. Eye has become akinetic. When patient doesn't feel the pain, the eye has become anesthetic. Okay. And when patient cannot close the lid, you have paralyzed the orbicularis oculi muscle. So when you give peribulbar block, when you inject 5 cc of the xylocaine adrenaline hyaluronidase mixture in peripheral space, you will be paralyzing all extraocular muscles. You will be paralyzing the ciliary ganglion, and you will be paralyzing the orbicularis oculi muscle. So you will achieve akinesia, immobile eyeball, anesthetic eyeball, and patient will not be able to close the lid. So again, to brush up your memory about the surgical spaces of the orbit, there are 4 surgical spaces: subperiosteal space, peripheral space, intraconal space, subtenon space. So eyeball is lodged in the bony orbit like this. So the lining of the bony orbit is periorbita. The space between the bone and the periorbita is known as subperiosteal space. Okay. An eyeball is suspended by 6 extraocular muscles, 4 recti. Okay. These are the superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, and lateral rectus. And these recti are joined by intermuscular septums. So the space within the recti is known as intraconal space. This space is known as intraconal space. And sclera, surrounding the sclera will be the Tenon's capsule. And beneath the Tenon's capsule, again, there is the surgical space. It is known as subtenon space. So the space which lies between the periorbita and the muscle cone, this is known as peripheral space. This space is peripheral space. So you can hit the peripheral space. This is the lower lid and this is the upper lid. So when you inject the xylocaine adrenaline mixture through the lower lid, you have to go a little bit deep and you will hit the peripheral space. If you go through the upper lid, it is easier. You can reach the peripheral space very easily. Even with 26 gauge needle, you can reach the peripheral space. This again shows the cross section of the orbit, and this is the intraconal space surrounded by the recti, and the space between the intraconal muscle cone and the periorbita is the peripheral space. So we will be giving block in the peripheral space. Peribulbar block will be given in the peripheral space. So now I will be showing you the videos. Wait a minute, I will call the computer operator to play the video. Open it. So you can see in the video how the peribulbar block is being given. You should withdraw and see whether there is any blood coming. If the blood is not coming, you can plunge in the peripheral space. 5 cc of the xylocaine, adrenaline, and Hyalase mixture. And then put super pinky as a pressure. So when you are doing the patient should not, if there is ptosis, patient will not be able to, when you can see the patient is moving the right eye, but not able to move the left eye. So patient has become akinetic eyeball and there paralysis. The same thing which you can give by upper peribulbar block, as I told you. From the upper lid also you can reach the peripheral space. So see, you can see patient is not able to move the left eye, and there is ptosis. So you paint the eyelids and put a drop of betadine into the eye and then clean the surrounding skin and drape the patient. After draping the patient, next video let me. Kiran. Next video. So now you'll see the steps of small incision cataract surgery. The first step is peritomy. You have to cut the conjunctiva close to the limbus from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. This step is known as peritomy. The surgeon is using Hoskins forceps and Westcott scissors. This is the monopolar cautery. He's cauterizing the. Then you will take a horizontal incision in the sclera, partial thickness, and then pass the crescent knife. This is the crescent knife by which you can create the pouch or tunnel. The surgeon is creating the tunnel into the corneoscleral stroma. Tunnel is something like the pocket in your apron. Now he has entered into the antechamber by keratome. So after entering into the antechamber, you extend the incision because we will be implanting the rigid IOL. Now, surgeon is using the Atrata forceps and doing capsulorhexis, continuous curvilinear capsulorhexis, capsulotomy. It is a type of capsulotomy. Now, he is introducing the jet of the fluid between the entercapsule and the lens, so that we lift the nucleus, and he is rotating the nucleus and bringing the nucleus out of the lenticular bag, and then he is creating the space between the iris and the nucleus. Now he has introduced the vectis and removed the nucleus from the tunnel. So after removing that nucleus, what remains is the cortical matter that will be aspirated by Simcoe cannula. The surgeon is aspirating the loose cortical matter. Now you can see the rim of the rhexis very clearly, round rhexis. So after removing the cortical matter, again AC will be filled with viscoelastic substance and IOL will be planted. Rigid single piece postage chamber IOL is implanted. First the leading haptic will go, and then optic and trailing haptic will go. Now IOL is in place in the retinacular bag. So after completion of the surgery, you are supposed to remove the viscoelastic substance. Otherwise, secondary glaucoma will occur. All these things we have taught in you in the theory. This is what you are supposed to see in the theater when you come to the theater. So after completion of the surgery, you seal the conjunctiva. This type of surgery is sutureless cataract surgery. So you don't need to put any suture. When you fill the AC, the posterior lip of the tunnel will come and attach to anterior lip of the tunnel, and it will be watertight and airtight wound. So you need not put any suture. Okay. Next, फेको में आ जाए थर्ड वीडियो नहीं है सर प्रीवियस लिस्ट में तो फिर वेरिएबल बार आ गया हाँ, फिर से चलने है उसको थर्ड वीडियो डालना है मुझे So this is another type of surgery. It is sophisticated surgery. Very small incision will be taken, and from that small incision you can emulsify the lens, and the steps are same up to capsulotomy. Here you will be creating two additional side ports, one at 10 o'clock, another at 2 o'clock for phacoemulsification. Other than main wound, you have to create. Then the surgeon is doing capsulotomy, curvilinear capsulorhexis. So at that time, till this period, the same steps are same. Now he is doing hydrodissection. Fluid is being run into between the cortex and the entercapsule. And when you run the fluid between the hardcore nucleus and the epinucleus, you will see this golden ring. It is known as hydrodelamination. When you see the golden ring, it is delaminated. Now the surgeon will introduce the phaco probe and start eating the lens. From 2.8 millimeter, you can eat away the whole lens. Now he is chopping the nucleus, creating the trench in the center of the nucleus. Then after creating the trench, they will break the nucleus mechanically by two choppers, and then start emulsifying the nucleus. Hold the pieces and then start eating the nucleus by phacoenergy. One by one, you have to create the piece, and then like a pie of the cake, you have to go on eating the nucleus by phacoprobe. The phaco probe will emit the ultrasound energy, which emulsifies the nucleus. So when last piece of the nucleus is eaten, what remains is the loose cortical matter. Loose cortical matter you can aspirate by irrigation and aspiration cannula. Instead of using Simcoe, in SICS you will be using Simcoe. Here, from one port you will be putting the irrigation cannula, and from another port you will be putting the aspiration cannula, and by maintaining the antechamber, you will be aspirating the cortical matter. When whole cortical matter is aspirated, then again you will fill the AC with viscoelastic substance, and then from the small opening you will be putting the foldable IOL. This the foldable IOL is being introduced from the small opening. The IOL will go inside and it will open within the antechamber. Yes, you can see optic, haptic, both haptics are in the now lenticular bag. So you can finish the surgery from 2.8 millimeter opening, and there is no need for the suture, and visual rehabilitation will be very good in phacoemulsification because trauma to the eye will be very minimal, and patient can go back to work next day. If he's an executive or a clerk or whatever, a housewife can do her kitchen chores in the next day, they can complete. So the video is getting repeated. You can see the tunnel is being made in the nucleus. So instead of, this is another technique, trenching. This is known as trenching. In the plus shape, you will trench the nucleus and then break the nucleus into 4 pieces. Previous technique was stop and chop technique. So when you create a cross on the nucleus, you can break it mechanically into 4 pieces by using 2 choppers. Now the surgeon is introducing 2 choppers, and mechanically he will break the nucleus into 4 pieces. 2 pieces he has made, now he has made it into 3 pieces, now 4 pieces. So these 4 pieces he can eat with the phaco probe. One by one piece, he will introduce the phaco probe, and by phaco energy, he will aspirate the nucleus. So you have seen today you have seen aphakia, how aphakia scenario, what questions will be asked when aphakia is kept as a long case or short case, and then you have seen how peribulbar block is given in the operation theater, and what exactly the drug used, and what are the advantages of the peribulbar block. And then you have seen the video of a small incision cataract surgery, and you have seen the video of phacoemulsification. 2 techniques, stop and chop technique and trenching technique. So in the theory also, we have taken all these things, and you are supposed to, because cataract will be kept as long as I told you, so you should know everything about cataract. So if you are answering very well, the examiner will ask you, what are the early complication, per operative complications of the cataract surgery, a small incision cataract surgery. While doing operation, you can encounter certain complications. And first day post-operative, you can see some complications. So it is nicely given in your book, Corona. You all go through that and be ready for the exam. So in the Next week, I will be taking the short case scenario. What short cases will be kept in the exam, I will try to discuss and try to show the uh, videos also, how the surgery is being done. Let us talk about this. If pterygium is kept as a short case, what are the questions asked in the pterygium, how you are supposed to diagnose the pterygium, and then what common questions which will be asked, and then how pterygium surgery is being done. That I will show in the form of video. And then if a chronic diagnosis is kept as a short case, then I will show you how DCR and DCT will be done in a video. And then if Calazion is kept as a short case, how it is done, I will show you. Try to cover all these 3 or 4 short cases which are commonly kept in the examination in the next 2 classes. And from the next week, second week of September, assistant professor will take other cases other than which are not, though the case you are supposed to know those cases, but they will not be kept in the exam, like ulcer cornea, opacities of the cornea, keratovenous. So one by one, one assistant, Dr. Farah or Dr. Madra will be taking that. So next week, so I will be completing my chore, my task of covering the practicals, long cases scenario, short cases scenario, videos I had shown you. If you come to the hospital, you will be visiting the operation theater, and what you are supposed to see in the operation theater, I had tried to show you today in the form of videos. Okay. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Or if you want any repeat class also, we are ready to take, because most of the portion has theory portion is finished now. So any topic you want it as a repeat class, it will be taken care of. Okay.